And we are live. Good late evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Honesty's late show. Sorry we haven't had one in a while. You know, I kind of was
Good late
a
evening,
little under the
ladies
weather.
and
What
gentlemen.
is
Welcome
that?
to Bigfoot
Somebody's
Honesty.
got their YouTube app open.
Sorry we haven't had one in a while.
That's you, Tex?
This is why we can't have nice things.
Happens every time. It's usually me. It's my phone. I forget. See, this time I remember to turn it off. But, you know, I was a little under the weather. Thought I had COVID. And luckily, this is the second time I thought I had it. But no, this time it was dodged that bullet. Just sinuses and allergies. But feeling much better. And our guests for this evening, creators of Trinity Paracryptid research. It's late for me. Trinity Paracryptid research on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to there, go check it out right now. Tex and Jason, how are you, gentlemen?
So far, so good. How about yourself, Carrie?
Man, I'm great.
Man.
Outside
I'm
of being recovered.
Yeah, you know, just have a lot going on actually. Trying to get back to work, and that's looking like July. So just kind of trying to make it till then, really. I guess we'll hang in there till then. We're doing what we can here for sure. Linda's working a lot, which is a little kind of disheartening to watch her go and do that almost every day. So, but hey, you know, it is what it is. We have to do what we have to do right now. So I created the new channel, the Shutter. If anybody hasn't gone and checked that out by now,
Awesome.
you really should. It's really taken off. But it's just encounters, stories. That's all it is. But it's actual. There's nothing. I mean, I'm not saying that anybody else does it, but it's actual encounter stories like BFRO, Bigfoot encounters. Mostly what people send in, but it's not just Bigfoot. It's ghosts, all cryptid, anything on the fringe, anything creepy, you know, or that'll make you shudder. Ghost stories. But I've been doing, you know, like affidavits, a lot of the older stuff that a lot of people don't get to hear a lot of is on there. I've been doing a lot of work with Cam Buckner from Dixie Cryptid. So
yeah, it's I've checked it out, man. I like it a lot.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit of Bigfoot stuff here tonight. We are gonna have live Q&A the whole time. So if anybody has a question, make sure you put it all in caps. A question for Tex or a question for Jason. We're gonna open up the discussion. That's all right.
That's dangerous, man. You know that.
Oh, it's okay. That's okay. That's what we want. You know, we're gonna be here for. Jason's got to go at 11 in an hour, so we'll probably cut it off right there. So if you have any questions, make sure you put those in caps. You can ask them anytime. Hopefully I'll catch them. If you put it in caps, I'll probably catch it because I'll be looking out for those. We are going to open up this discussion with migration and the possibilities and what it would entail, things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that to start with. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure we keep it clean in the chat. We do appreciate that. No fighting and arguing with each other. Let's be nice. And so I'll kick it off. I'll ask you, Tex. There appears to be a broad spectrum when it comes to this creature. I mean, in almost every respect, when it comes to behavior, when it comes to the way they look, and they just in the lower 48. We'll even take Canada and Mexico out of it. Just the lower 48. They're everywhere, apparently. Yep. They seem to be. You can get reports out of every single state of someone having a class A, B, or C sighting of one of these creatures. So what is your feeling on these creatures moving around? Do you think they migrate?
I think some of them do. I think some of them don't. I think it all depends on what area they're in and the abundance of food. I do think they'll follow a food source. If they wear the game out in one area, you know, I think they're nomadic. But I don't think, like down here, you know, in the South, I don't think they move around so much. I think they have like I think they have a territory kind of like a cougar does. they'll make the rounds in their 300-mile radius.
Sure.
And I think they're a lot like that because maybe up north, maybe that's a little stronger migration, but maybe weather and because that drives the food. But I don't think so down here.
Well, you think that an opportunist is going to find it advantageous to move around, but you can find a lot of different habitats in 100 square mile area.
Right.
You can find there, especially down here. There's so much food down here when it comes to everything. For anything omnivorous, especially, you've got it all down here year round. Anywhere from probably I would say a little south of Mason-Dixon line. Where it doesn't snow.
Right.
Quite so much. That's what I would think. But you hear about these creatures. I think you're right. I think they find an area, they know it well, they claim it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's around people, they've got, I guess, suppose they have entertainment and there's a food source. But I think they do move around. I don't know about migrating from one place to another. It just seems to me it's just not necessary to do. It's like, what do you think, Jason?
No, actually, that's exactly my opinion, right? I mean, and again, I'm since we don't even know what they are, I'm really coming to a point where I think that there may be 2 or 3 completely different groups of creature that we are calling Bigfoot, right? I think that may be one of the problems. Is that we are trying. The reason that their behavior seems so varied is I think that we're trying to clump 2 or 3 different groups of creatures together, and because they're just tall or they're hairy, we're sort of assuming that they're all the same. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But that being said, if they are more a great ape like what we would see with the gorillas, I sort of agree that I don't think that they migrate north or south. I think they have a range. Right, sort of a territory, like Tex was describing, and that they sort of stick to it. And the reason for that is we do see these patterns where people see or report accounts of them, but then they seem to disappear. But then they always come back a few years later. So it does seem like there's this pattern of them moving up and down the rivers, looking for certain food sources. They're familiar with it. So I would imagine that there's a territory that they are home to and they understand, but I don't know that they're necessarily migrating.
Right. Tex, do you have your headphones? You're getting a little bit of wash out there. I think what's coming off of your computer is getting picked up by your microphone. It's kind of hissy.
But while he's fixing
right.
that, I noticed a bunch.
Now go to your settings. Go to your settings and turn your headphones on. Audio. All right. Yeah. While we're doing that, what were you saying, Jason?
Yeah. No, I was just saying I'm recognizing a lot of our friends down there. So howdy, guys.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have probably the same audience. I would think.
Yeah. There's definitely some overlap.
There's 93 in here right now. It's but I mean 99 now. It's a late show. We usually get about 150 for this. On Wednesday when we do the regular Bigfoot Odyssey, there'll be 250, 300 sometimes. I'm proud of it for being a Bigfoot show.
No, I was just saying hi to all the friends. But yeah, I think a lot of this is more driven by food. But I do think they stick to an area.
Right.
I mean, again, it's what a lot of people do. I mean, it's a survival. Being nomadic is a pretty solid survival strategy for a lot of different animals and for humans. And with that, you usually are just following the food, right? And that just seems to be the case. Like I said, if they are just great apes, just significantly larger and significantly smarter, they would still follow into that behavior. Because like I said, gorillas tend to stick to the same general area, but they're moving they never set a permanent nest, right? There's no one nesting spot. They just move over 20, 30, 40 mile area.
Well, this is something that I thought about. This creature, they hide. And
Mhm.
And just because you don't see them or notice them around doesn't mean they're not there.
Oh, absolutely.
So I kind of view it that way. So when someone says, well, they're here this time of year but they're not here this time of year, how do
Right.
you know? How do you really know? I mean,
Mhm.
and like you said, I do. I think they move. I think they have to. I think like I said, it's advantageous for an opportunist to move around, but also to sit in one place. You
Yeah.
have to. I think you have to consider conservation of energy when you talk about some of the masses of these creatures.
Mhm.
They can't be hiking around all day. You wouldn't think. We don't know what their metabolism is.
Right.
They could be like alligators and weigh 1,000 pounds and eat once a month and be just fine. But alligators are not very active. They're active when they need to be. So
Right.
I think it's
I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, they're clearly warm blooded. So I think they're probably on the regular, but I agree with you. I think that I think we often forget what kind of survival strategies that there are, right? They are clearly predators, right? We know they're omnivores. So they're eating all kinds of food, but they're clearly predators, and that allows them, I think, a lot more freedom than people realize versus, say, being a gorilla, which is primarily an herbivore. They are, processing plant matter takes a lot of energy, which is why you have to do it so often, right?
right.
If you're a predator, though, you can absolutely go on less food than people realize because your
Right.
body is more readily able to break it down and absorb it and has more of what you need than plants do. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have, like you said, strategies that allow them to go longer without eating than we would imagine. But I think they're also keen enough that they're able to eat on the regular. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
We're still getting that hiss text. It just sounds like wind blowing through there.
Are you in the wind tunnel again?
I changed rooms.
Oh, it's the air conditioner. That's
Uh,
what it is. Okay, it's gone now. Oh well, you put yourself on mute. I got you. He's going to fix that. Well, and I've contended that maybe they can control their own metabolism, their own metabolic rate. Maybe that's part of that sitting there in one place for a long time and just observing and watching and sitting still. Maybe they are slowing themselves down. Maybe kind of like a mini
right.
hibernation. That they can just control. You know, metabolically, however they want, however they do it. It just sounds plausible to me. That would be
Yeah.
another advantageous thing to do if you could do it. When it comes to survival, we
Yeah.
don't have to do these things. That's another thing about human beings is we don't concern ourselves with surviving the way we used
Right.
to.
No, we don't. Well, and I also think that we also need to remember that even if we work from the assumption that
Well, that's all we are doing.
that's exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we can do what my archaeology professor called a wild ass guess, right? Everything's a wag. I actually got scored points by putting down answers in EWAG, educated wild ass guess. Um, but if we work from the presumption that the Sasquatch that we see in the Pacific Northwest are the same that we see here and around Dallas Waxahachie area, right? The Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. Even if they are the same, they are clearly different sizes, right? We do the Pacific Northwest. We tend to have much larger animals, whereas down here, um, again, like Jeff Stewart saw, was he said his was only about between 6 and 7 feet tall, real sort of lean, and we get large creatures out here, but we don't see. I have not taken any accounts of anything larger than 8 feet, right? I'm not saying that they don't exist, but mostly what you find around here is 8 feet tall. But that's not so far outside of the human range that would require more food than average human, right? So I think that we see deers occupying different niches. I think their size and then therefore their caloric intake is very dependent on the niche that they are in, right? But that being
Sure.
said, I think they are. I think they're again. They're not having to migrate to follow deer herds hundreds of miles. I think they're sticking to a relatively small 50 to 100 mile radius area, but that they are able to find plenty of food for their family groups, their tribes, whatever you want, whatever phrase you want to say. But personally, I'm not of the opinion that there's as many as some have speculated, right? I mean, I'm of the opinion there's probably less than 1,000 individuals north and all of North America. I'd cap it out at 5, but something like 20, 30,000. I'm like, that's an awful lot of creatures running around.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
White-tailed deer.
Right.
I don't know. You may know this. I don't know. How many white-tailed deer are there in the lower 48? I'm not talking about elk and moose and everything else. Just white-tailed deer. How many are there?
You know what? I actually used to know this answer a couple of years ago. Let me actually give you one better. It's actually from the book.
Just come on now. Humor me.
Last night, 10 million, I think 10 to 20 million was the range that I had seen at one point.
Okay, it's 3 times that.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's about 35 million. All right, and how often do you see one of those? So is it so hard to believe that there could be a million Sasquatch out there? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think they're exhausting resources the way people think they would be.
I would agree with you on that. No, I completely agree with you on that. And let me go one better. We have in the city of Irving, which is in between Dallas and Arlington, right? In fact, most people don't even know they're in Irving half the time because it's really just very much a continuation of Dallas's urban sprawl. It's concrete sprawl. Last time we did an estimate, they believe that there is somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 very large wild or feral pigs running around Irving, just tearing stuff up, destroying things. Most people, if you go to anyone in Irving and say, have you seen an 800-pound feral hog, they would look at you like you were insane.
Right.
And yet we have that population there, and they're able to stay entirely hidden. So I get what you're saying. I don't disagree per se, but I have a feeling that between their size, between how it's weird, how often do we see them? I think the problem is there's that question, right? How often are we actually seeing Bigfoot versus a dogman versus something else that we sort of all crammed together in that same hairy hominid thing? I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion there may be fewer than some people believe. It may be more than I'm thinking.
Reported about 400 a year get reported. Now, that's nationwide, Canada, Mexico, United States. That's for North America. That's just what's reported. So you figure it's got to be 20 times that, I would think. I think it's 21, the people that see them and don't say anything, that don't report anything. If you go to the BFRO website, you're going to see over 15,000 reports there since 85. That's just since 85. That's what's been reported. So if you do those numbers right there, there has to be a very sizable population of these creatures. Just from my point of view, it is strictly to do with the elusiveness of the creature. No one's out there actually looking for them. Okay. I believe they're actively staying away from us, trying not to be seen, trying not to be found out. I think it's either by accident or most of those are roadside crossings. Now it's just, and most of the rest are hunters going off trail.
Yeah.
Now, hardly ever do you have what happened to me, where they come to you, where they come and encounter you intentionally. Now, I think there has to be a very special set of circumstances there, like I had.
Completely agree with you. Absolutely on that.
Before they give themselves away.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree with you. In fact, I'm kind of open to some pretty wild reasons as to why we miss them, right? But I also I'm also starting to wonder if they live much closer to us than we realize. I think we sort of have this idea that they're all off because, again, people completely misunderstand how much wild, naked area that there is, right? One of the concepts I talk about in the book, which at some point is supposed to come out, according to the people. I'll send you a copy. I talk about a concept called the green wall, right? And one of the things that we tend to forget is when we build a road, when that rain comes down, it's what would have been absorbed in the entire area is now going and running off into these areas that we've created, and it's concentrating that water. Well, we're mowing the grass. So wherever that tree line is, you have all this underbrush that's growing up, and you can't see more than 2 feet into it, right? So unless you're on the other side of that green wall, you're not going to see anything at all. I think these things are living way closer to us than we realize. And I don't think they need superhuman powers to necessarily hide from us. I think they just need to be 2 feet in on the brush line, and we can't see them.
Well, I'll give you an example. And people are always talking about, well, I've been hunting for years, and how come I haven't ever seen one? Well, one, you're not looking for them, just like Kerry said. Mm-hmm. 9 out of 10 people are not looking for them. Number two, I was watching the game warden show the other night, and they were looking for a lost hiker on a trail. There were about 50 to 100 people looking for this person. The cameramen were with a team walking through their doing their search, and they said we're trying to cover just a 30-mile square area, and they said you can be 15 feet away. We have to stay about 10 feet away from each other just to stay in eye contact, because you get 15, 20 feet away from each other, you can't see each other. We would walk right by this person and not know it. That's the thing. And you're looking at a creature and this is somebody that they're looking for, somebody that's trying to be found. Right. Not to mention these creatures that are trying to hide, and they're a master.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying there's a million. I just think it's possible.
I don't disagree with you. And yeah, so let me say this. I don't disagree with that number. Right. If someone were to say magically we waved a wand and I was, they're like, there's 5 million or 10 million, I'd buy it because there's plenty of room for them.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be surprised if particularly with our agricultural produce, our waste, I think there's plenty of food for them without even having to dig into, the deer population, squirrels, missing hikers, things like that. But that having been said, I think the fact that there's too little evidence of them. I think that's an indication of a smaller population size. Again, I'm happy to be wrong, but
to me, it's just too little evidence being presented. We have to get more people putting their stuff out there. There's so many researchers that don't put their stuff anywhere. They're just out. Bill and Sheila Tucker did it for 4 years before they even decided to put anything on YouTube. They had all this evidence. And I mean, that's just another aspect of it. So I think there's a lot more people that see these things. They see these creatures. They walk by evidence. I probably walked by it 1,000 times and just was too stupid to know what to look for. I wasn't looking for anything like that. I just looked right over it. I think the signature of this creature is so faint and transparent in the woods. It takes an expert to find it. I'm not that person. Even people looking for the signs of this creature, they're just so good at keeping themselves concealed and away from us. Which I always answer the why we don't have a body question. With that, they're just not going to leave one of their dead around for us to find. They're going to do something with it.
I completely agree. In fact, that one of the thoughts I've always had. In fact, people are like, "Why don't we just shoot one?" I'm like, my personal belief is I think that people have killed them, but then that person has also themselves been killed.
Yeah, I'm not even going to breach the subject because
we have a question we can get to whenever y'all. It doesn't matter, but as soon as you get we'll get to the question.
The subject is taboo on this channel, but if you have the opportunity to kill one, and you do, that you're right, Jason. The chance of you making it out alive is not good. Much less trying to go back and grab something off of the critter and making it back.
I think when it comes down to survival, these creatures are quite vindictive when it comes to loved ones and keeping them alive. And if you're putting any one of them in danger, they're going to take you out. That's just
absolutely
what they do.
And on the other side of that coin, I've had a report I read this report, that this guy gut shot one with a 30-30 on the Red River. It stumbled out onto a sandbar. 2 more rushed it, broke its neck, and tore it apart and ate it.
Wow. See, that's another one of those things. Is this another type that's doing that?
Right.
That's another one of those type questions that somehow some people seem to know that there are these many different types, and there's type A, 1A, and 2B, and all that. And I don't know. It all sounds ridiculous to me. How anybody knows that stuff? But hey, we're not going to go there either. Just saying. But that's an argument for it.
Oh,
right there. It could be one of those things that there's just a group of these things that do that. We had 18 million Native Americans in this country at one time, living off the land. 18 million.
Yeah.
80 some odd different tribes, 400 different offshoots of those tribes, all speaking a different language, all doing something different from each other's tribe. So, compartmentalization matters. And I think it matters just as well with this creature. I don't think they're all communicating with each other in any sense. It doesn't make any sense that they would be. So maybe there's a sect that does do that, and that's what they do, is they cannibalize. What we got here? Let's do this. Let's get this question right quick. This is the first one I saw anyway. Wandering Woman says, "What do you guys think is the reason or reasons Bigfoot like to watch humans?" Entertainment. Okay. We're pretty dangerous, as far as the species goes. We don't live symbiotically with our environment. We oppose it. We do everything to quell it every chance we get to make ourselves comfortable. These creatures apparently do live symbiotically with nature, and I think that's why they don't just up and kill us, because it's not advantageous for them to do so.
Exactly.
Even though they could. I think that's why they don't, is because it doesn't make any sense to them. Why?
Right.
There's just no point in it. So I think they're watching us for that reason right there, because we're dangerous.
Oh, I agree. I think that's it. We know that there are at least stories that certain tribes had a closer relationship with at least some other family groups in the past, where you have stories of juvenile Bigfoots playing with other children, right? However, I think just like, and really this kind of goes for me even over into Europe, right? I think once they realized, hold up, this technology puts them at, it puts us way in advance of them. I think they realized we need to just best leave this alone. Don't get me wrong. The Indians clearly, the American Indians clearly had conflict with Bigfoot. We see it in a lot of their lore and a lot of their myths. They're like, hey, don't necessarily go causing trouble. But I think that once they realized we were just so far advanced with guns, things like that, I think they realized it's best just to leave well enough alone and stay out of line of sight. While I'm of the opinion that the Monder's Minimum destroyed a lot of the, I guess we can call it the Sasquatch population of Europe, and other than dragons and things like that in Europe, I think that they were also hunted out. I think that there was that conflict, particularly with the Monder's Minimum making food so difficult in Europe. I think that's what bred a lot of these conflicts between the ogre. We see myths of ogres and these other kind of creatures, and they are all trolls. They're all destroyed. So I would be of the opinion that when we came over here, I think they got a good look at what we could do, and it was like, yeah, we may as well let's just step back from this and stay out of their way. That seems like a much easier way of surviving.
In that same vein, they scare us.
Yeah.
And they know they scare us. And what do we do whenever we get scared? We feel like we have to defend ourselves, even if we're not being attacked. All it takes is for you to see one of these creatures, and trust me, I know for a fact this is true. If you see one, you are going to be afraid. Simple as that. You're not human if you don't, if it's not that way. You're not, I wasn't emotionally prepared for it. I don't think most people would be emotionally prepared to come in contact with one of these creatures. It's just going to fly all over you and stay with you for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I was perfectly willing to shoot what I saw. If I had the right weapon, I would have shot it. There's no doubt in my mind with what I knew then, because I didn't know anything. Knowing what I know now, obviously I would just kind of probably back away and try not to make eye contact. eye contact with it and kind of ease on out of there. Because they scare us. And I think they know they scare us. I think there are some that actually use that for entertainment. I think they do it on purpose. I really do. I think they've done Rick Wells.
It's strange that, I've gotten more success as far as researching goes, doing what I call passive research, which is just letting them come to me. And it almost never fails. It's, I call, that one time when I thought it was, I got mad and left because I thought it was pigs. Me and you talked about that night when I was on my way back from Oklahoma, Kerry, and you told me, I don't think that was pigs. And it didn't click when I was there.
Doesn't make sense to be pigs.
There was no noise, and pigs are freaking noisy.
They are. They let you know they're there.
Yeah. The thing about pigs is it doesn't matter where you go. They all act the same way.
Right.
Because they're a slave to their stomach. They're ruled by their senses and their instincts. That's what they're ruled by. They don't have the ability. Maybe they do have the ability to work things out, but not the ability to plan. I don't believe that pigs are a self-aware creature. It's like a cat. You put a mirror up and a cat sees it and he thinks it's another cat. I think pigs are probably going to be the same. Sasquatch being, obviously, they have to be. It's almost obvious that they are. I think we would see them a lot more. We'd have a lot better evidence if they weren't watching us so closely. I mean, watching us closely enough to know our intentions by our actions and our notions and what we're doing. It's like people, we've come across this so many times where people have stayed in one place for 25 years and never heard or saw anything out of the ordinary that they can remember. They may have heard it and subconsciously just put it out of their mind, right? But then what happens? They see one out the back door of the house. It's out by a tree. And then even if they don't think the creature knew they saw them, once that happens, the game is up. Everything seems to change or even if they don't see one and you start to believe, belief is a very powerful inception. It has to change the way you act and react, even subconsciously. You don't realize you're doing it when you get home and you step out of the car and you're looking around in the woods. You don't realize you're doing that, but you're doing it. And I think they see that. And it's those little subtle things that they notice. Something's changed here. I think they know we're here. Now let's throw rocks at the house. Now let's come up and slap. Now that seems to be what happens every time. Someone becomes aware of these creatures. And I don't think awareness is a bad thing. I think that's always what we've tried to push, is to be aware of these creatures, because I think it's a whole lot worse not to be aware and to encounter one than it is to be aware and encounter one. From just my personal opinion, I may be 100% wrong. I think if I would have known anything about them, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad as it was for me.
No, and you're right, Kerry. And I've had both kinds of encounters. One like you that you weren't prepared for, and one that I was prepared for. Or more than one that I was prepared for. And there's a world of difference on how you react and how you emotionally deal with it. It's when I had my first encounter at 16. It freaked me out for 6 months. You've heard the story. It wasn't, of course, depending on what you believe, it was or wasn't a Squatch. Right. But, and then, 3 years ago, when I had my first daylight sighting of a Squatch, it wasn't no big deal. My exact was, well, I'll be damned, there goes one right there. And it's, and
your behavior is different. The way you think is completely and totally different. Right. We got, here, let's take this one right here from Bomber, Miss Bomber. Where are Tex and Jason from? Have they had a visual encounter? Well, we just answered half of that. Where are you guys from?
Texas.
Yep.
Well, we know that.
I'm a Dallas native.
Dallas.
We're both in the DFW area.
Dallas, Fort Worth. And Tex, obviously. Tex, you've seen a dog man, which I think was a Bigfoot, but you saw it. I didn't. And then, Jason, you've seen a pterosaur of some kind.
Yep. Ramphracoid pterosaur. Yep.
right out in broad daylight, which
And,
how many
yeah.
people are really looking up?
Well, so interesting story. If I may diverge for just a moment, with the exception of one, all of the accounts I've taken have been in broad daylight. Usually, it's the early morning, before either between 9 and 10 or up to as late as 11. Mine was about 11 o'clock, but it's that pre-noon time. People are seeing these things. In fact, I just took an account. I can't say who because I don't think he wants it out there. But it's a person known very, very well to me, and he wouldn't tell. He just asked. He's like, "Hey, if anyone tells you that someone saw something in this area at this time, could you let me know?" He didn't believe it, and this was like 2 weeks ago, but it was less than a mile from my sighting. I think that they are. It's one of those things where they look enough like egrets and cranes that unless you get a really good look at them, you're not going to necessarily see it.
Well, I think, and also they're big enough, and you think about that area. How many airplanes are in the sky out there? If someone just glanced at it real quick, they might think it was an airplane, So it's the same thing with the Sasquatch. Someone's walking through the woods and they hear something big run off. It's a deer or a hog or something else, when it very well could be one of these creatures. Or they hear the loud scream. Well, that's a panther or a bobcat. Even though they don't really know what a panther and a bobcat sound like, or even if they do, it sounds a little bit off, but still they're explaining it away. So I think all in that same vein, there's just not enough of us out there actively looking for these creatures all the time. I mean, it has to be a hobby. We have to have regular jobs. The normal average person has to have regular jobs. I can imagine there's one or two people out there that are funded, that are out there doing this, but that's one or two people. There just needs to be more actively out there trying to get something good. And I think people will think there's more out there doing that than there are. There's really not. Yeah. I think there's probably 200 in the United States. And most of those are weekend warriors or they'll go, camping for a week at a time, a couple of times a year. That's really not long enough. And they're picking different places to go, and they're not staying in an area. And there's a lot of variables in that. So I think if the funding was there,
yes,
then obviously there would be a lot more.
Sorry, I'm looking something up in sort of response to what you were saying. I actually just a question popped in my head. But so two points to that, which I completely agree with everything you just said. Right? We're I think particularly with Sasquatch, I think we are looking for them the wrong way, just in general.
We're looking for evidence more than when you're looking for the creature itself.
Correct. That I completely agree with. I think that's definitely the tack we need to take. But like with my pterosaur sighting, like all of the pterosaurs that I've seen, that I've got reports for or have seen in the North Texas, Oklahoma region, the wingspan is only 8 to 10 feet. Right. There are larger reports of much larger pterosaurs down around the Rio Grande Valley, even along the East Coast. Or I'm sorry, the West Coast. But for around here and a few other places, the ones that they tend to be only an 8 to 10 foot wingspan. So we're not talking about something so large that people are mistaking them. They're within that realm that, again, most people would see and just be like, oh, it's a crane, right? Maybe a big, because that's why I thought I was looking at it first. I thought I was looking at just the biggest blue heron in the world until it was 5 feet from my face. And I got a really good look at it. That's when I was like, oh, that's definitely not what that is. So I completely agree. We're not really looking. We don't have the numbers of people looking, and the people who are looking aren't looking the right way. The reason I was looking this up was I was trying to see if I could find the population of wolverines in North America alone, because there are people who have dedicated their entire lives to it. Yeah, it doesn't say it easily. I'll look it up later.
About 300,000, right?
I didn't see it, but yeah,
there's another one of those. It's a regional thing. You're not going to find a wolverine everywhere.
Well, look at how long it took them to get a picture of a snow leopard.
Right. That's the other example I use. Right. 3 years for the original Planet Earth, right? They went out there 3 years and they got 30 seconds of film.
Right.
It's like, this is a snow leopard. And again, it's not like the Himalayas are where they're looking for these snow leopards are covered in trees where they can hide. Like, they're walking basically out in the open. And yet it took them 3 years to get 30 seconds of film. Borneo rhino. Now, against Borneo, there's a lot of high grass, but still 100 years to get 30 seconds, to get less than 15 seconds of film.
Yeah, the panda.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And the reason for the Wolverine is there are people who, we know everything there is to know about a Wolverine. We know what it eats, where it goes, what its habitat is, and they're dumb as rocks. And yet, we have researchers who are funded who will go out and look for these things to study them, and they can't find them. It's like, so, and now we have some of these creatures. Again, pterosaurs, I think, a very small population size. They kind of blend in, and it's not like the people are being funded to go research them.
Right. And so, who's making that report?
Yeah. No, precisely. And that's the thing. There was.
I think I would.
Oh, exactly. But there was a time when people talked about this stuff openly. Post World War I, though, that door was shut. If you say anything that sort of contradicts this one particular worldview, then you're kicked out. You lose your funding. I've spoken with several. Again, I kind of started my whole career with archaeology. The reason I decided not to go with it was because I met too many people who had found the wrong object and admitted that they found it. Right?
Career
and then, yeah, you go from being almost an tenured professor and researcher to a florist real fast if you find the wrong object. So
can't buck the paradigm.
Nope.
At all.
That paradigm is what brings in the cash.
That's right. Right quick, Miss D, lady in the woods. When is Tex coming back to Oklahoma?
Soon, if I can help it.
Soon. All right, that's pretty subjective.
Like the swallows returning to Capistrano, Tex will eventually migrate up to
He's not going to tie himself down to a date, Miss D. Are you kidding me? Soon. That's good enough. He's going back soon. I can imagine COVID's got everybody, hemmed up right now. I don't really want to go out. Now, I'll leave here and drive to West Texas and go to work because there's nobody out there anyway. So, but that's not till probably mid-July, I'm hoping. I did sign a contract with a company, so I am going to go to work.
Well, that's awesome,
I'm going back, but it's just a matter of when. Oil is still on the floor right now. So, and speaking of oil, I want to get this out of the way right quick.
Please.
You guys had a guest on your show last night, and I'm not trying to pick on this person or anything, but just summarize where does our oil supply come from again for the planet Earth? Tell us where that came from, according to this person.
Jason, would you like to take this, or
would you like me to do the honors? I will do the honors. Okay.
This ain't Bigfoot, y'all, but you got to hear this. This is okay. If you haven't heard it already, this is incredible.
I have to still. I honestly, every time I tell the story, I lose it laughing. I do every time I tell someone new about this because let's take
a second now. Now, yes. the guest that we had, Gordon, he's a great guy.
Yes.
Okay. And I got nothing but respect for the guy. And I'm not saying he's lying. I don't believe the way he believes. And I told him that last night. And I told him that's why I enjoy having him on, because me and him and Jason can have a difference of opinion and not it turn into a screaming, yelling, fiasco. So
but I mean, this is a science though. We actually do know where oil comes from. And a lot of people think it's dinosaurs, but it's not.
I don't believe what Jason's fixing to tell you what this guy says.
And Jason doesn't believe what Jason's about to tell you either.
But
I just want people to hear this. It's so awesome. I want people to hear it.
Okay, so apparently there was a planet that we will designate as Marduk for the time being. It was destroyed. It is what makes up the large portion of the asteroid belt that's between Mars and Jupiter.
Fair enough.
It was a life bearing planet, and therefore it had oil, and that oil is just sitting there in these with these massive globules of trillions of gallons of or barrels of oil just sitting there in space in this area. When Nibiru, aka Planet X, swings by every 3,000, hold on, I wrote it down, 3,600 years, right? 57 years. It collects a huge amount of that oil. And when it swings past Earth and its magnetic field causes us to go all haywire, that oil is then literally slammed into our atmosphere, and it encapsulates us, and then the oil rains down on the Earth, and then goes into cracks within the Earth where it pools. Also during this time, it is ejecting from its volcanic core red soil. And so all the red dirt that you find in and around the planet is also coming from Planet X, aka Nibiru, where the Anunnaki live, who created us.
I just thought that was fantastic. I did. I'm not trying to prove the guy wrong. It's not. It has nothing to do with that. You know, we know there's no standing oil in the United States anymore. There are no pools or lakes of oil under the ground. It's all inside shell. That's why we have to frack to get it. You know, if it was just sitting down there, we could just stick a straw down there and suck it out of the ground. It just doesn't work that way. And I wanted other people to hear that here. I know it doesn't have anything to do with Bigfoot. I just thought it was so amazingly outrageous to hear that. And it's because we know we have the science for this. You know, oil is nothing but ancient seafloor. You know, the Permian Basin out there in Texas has been an ocean 7 times in the last 60 million years. That's why there's 7 different shales out there. And and it's only about 800 feet deep down there. You go 10,000 feet down, there's one, and it's about 800 feet. And they drill along it, frack it, perforate it, and the oil flows out. And but it's old seafloor is what it actually is, especially fuel grade. Now there is standing oil in places like the Middle East. They don't have to frack; they just have like lakes of oil down under the ground. But it's that sludge. It's actually a lot of longer chain hydrocarbons. Here we have fuel grade oil that you have to has a lot fewer properties to it. It's mostly gas oil, or you got gas oil, which is what they make diesel out of. Just above that is lean gas oil or gasoline. And then you have rocket fuel, lighter fluid, things like that. The further up it goes, the thinner it gets. And all the asphalt and tar and oil and stuff like that is, you know, down toward the bottom, the longer chain hydrocarbons. I just wanted people to hear that because that's one of the few things I know a little bit about. When I heard that, how somebody could know that, we won't get into that, but the aliens told them that, correct?
Yes. Okay. Right. And I think that's, again, that is, again, all due respect to him. That was sort of my problem, is that so much of what he believes is coming from these extraterrestrials. And like Tex, I believe he's having these encounters. I don't believe that they are what he believes them to be. And I don't think that they're giving him actual information or information.
Demons will lie to you straight up.
And see, that's what I'm concerned about. And that's the same thing, and I'll segue here. That's the same thing I worry about with Squatch and Mindspeak. Now,
okay, let's talk about that for a second, the whole Mindspeak thing. I've got my own theory about this. And it has a lot more to do with electromagnetic energy than it does infrasound or telepathy or anything like that. I'm not saying that these creatures are not doing that. They could very well be. I mean, people are hearing something. Mm-hmm. But I do know when you come into high contact with EMF, it makes you sick. It can make you disoriented. It can make you lose time. It can make you hear voices. And those are all symptoms of EMF, which is a lot more powerful than infrasound, even though, I mean, maybe they do all of this stuff together, but, and whether they're controlling it somehow, I don't know. Maybe they collect in places where EMF is higher, where there are ley lines and all these good things. Mm-hmm. But to me, if there's another explanation, then you can't pin down one as being a fact over the other. That's just how I see it. And like I said, I could be 1,000% wrong, even though there's no such thing as 1,000%, 100% wrong. about the whole thing. But this is just kind of where my brain goes. What else is possible here? These people are hearing something. They're seeing
Yes, they are.
something going on here. What else is possible aside from, I don't want to call it a lazy way of thinking and going straight into magic, but what else could be happening here that can cause this? And to me, that's just one of those things. And you can find natural levels of high EMF all over the world in different places. It's just there. If I start hearing voices in my head, I'm going to be looking up for power lines. Most definitely. But again, people could be hearing exactly Sasquatch talking to them. This lady, Miss Betty, lives right up the road from me, has them talking to her in her head. They protect her. And she's 63 or 64 years old, lives by herself, and is dead serious. I'm trying really hard to get her on the show. She doesn't want to come on the show, but I called her 2 weeks ago, and we talked for almost an hour. Lovely, lovely lady. She is absolutely telling the truth.
Yeah.
She believes it anyway, in my mind.
Exactly.
Something's going on there. She's hearing this.
Well, and I've talked to a lot of people, and some of them are really good friends of mine that I trust, and I know they're not lying to me. They're experiencing something, but I'm legitimately concerned that it may not be what they think it is.
Yeah, I think Sasquatch gets blamed for a lot of things.
I do too.
That are out there.
I do too.
Which is what I was mentioning at the beginning, that I think we may be trying to cram too many differing phenomena into the same basket. And I do wonder how much the mind speak thing is, but is maybe plays a part of that, right? How much of that is connected? But going back to the EMF thing, that's actually a personal theory that I have as well. Is I think that they may be very sensitive to EMF, which is why we can't really get a good photo of them, right?
Yeah, makes sense too.
That they can detect it, and again, there's just certain things I don't want to say because people have told me things in confidence. So I will say this: there are enough experiences where trail cams have just behaved very, very oddly.
Batteries draining,
photographs like, where there's a crossing, they have all these photos of animals, but then they have a plain, it's completely distorted, white, unusable image, and then everything goes back to normal for all the other images. And there's, tracks. That tells me they are aware, and they maybe even have the ability to influence those machines. Now, I find it interesting. Sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, if it's true that people believe these creatures operate on a higher frequency than us, then there's your tool, or there's your catalyst right there. Having the ability to manipulate these different energies. With themselves being on a completely different frequency level of energy than us. If that's true, there's another possibility right there that they can be controlling this and using this energy to keep themselves hidden, to cloak themselves. EMF, that was the whole Philadelphia experiment of cloaking a battleship, wasn't it?
That is one of the theories, yes.
EMF. So,
no, absolutely.
Could be how they cloak themselves if they do it.
And let me go one step further on this. We know the platypus has the ability to, the way it looks for prey, right, is it has those receptors. It looks for the EMF field in like crayfish. They could just simply have a much more powerful version of that allows them to sense. And here's where I would connect it. I think, again, what is our brain? Our brain is simply chemicals and electrical impulses. It's entirely possible that maybe that is the origin of their if they are mind speaking, that may be what they're doing. They're just it's an electromagnetic wave that's conveying that message that in a way our brain can comprehend. It doesn't have to be supernatural. Well, and let me even just say this: I wonder if we don't draw too hard a line between physical reality and supernatural reality.
Well, you've got, it's not out of the realm of possibilities for these things to have this capability, because if you take a look at the hammerhead shark, or any shark for that matter, the hammerhead shark uses electromagnetics to look for food, just like you were saying the platypus does.
I think all creatures use it for navigation.
Right.
We do. Absolutely, we do. They've proven that. So I mean, they just may have a better, a higher version of it, or again, they maybe they are supernatural. I literally don't know.
I mean, I would love to know, because I've had some crazy crap happen to me when I'm out.
Me too.
Looking for Bigfoot.
But to me,
you got an EVP. Me and DDoS had a lost time.
It's a natural explanation for.
I got sick. I mean,
for an unnatural phenomenon. It's a seemingly unnatural phenomenon. I mean, there is a 6 foot long, 60-pound eel that can hit you with 100,000 volts of electricity and kill you.
Yep.
Now that's just a fish. So they can do that. Why? Is it so far outside the known possibility that this creature could have control of this type of energy? To me, it's not. And I think it's all about metabolism, their rates of how they process everything. Who was it? Ron Moorhead says it's their vocal cords. They do it with their vocal cords. And another clue right there of how it's possible that this could be happening. Now, we have, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get away. We only got 4 minutes left.
I get a little extra time. So we can. Yeah.
I just want to get to as many people's questions as we have on here as possible. We're ranting and rolling. It's been a great show, I think, so far. 5 Hazel, my girl, says, Tex, can you tell us a little more about your encounters?
I can. Where do I start? Since we're talking about Bigfoot, I'll stick with that.
Yeah. That would be useful.
I do. For those who don't know, I do the lion's share of my research alone and at night in Brown Springs, which is a very, has a very ominous, I guess you call it, reputation.
It does.
It does, and for good reason. For good reason. You've been out there.
I hate it.
Exactly. And I've had some really crazy stuff happen. But I've had, when my first trip out there with DDoS, got out of the truck, I'm just looking around, taking in the scenery, checking the lay of the land. One, I'd never been there before, and I didn't want to, go out blind. He's getting stuff ready to get out of the truck. I'm looking through a little thin tree line into a wheat field. This thing jumps up out of the wheat field, runs across a fire break about, 67 yards from me. Broad freaking daylight. This is 8:30 in the morning. And it's like I said earlier, my exact words, I'll be damned, there goes one right there. And he's like, what? And he got mad because 3 or 4 people have seen one in the same exact place do the same exact thing, and he's never had an opportunity to see it. So he's upset,
Well, when I went down there, we both saw the same thing.
Right.
But it was
stuff that was there, and then it left.
Well, it was so matter of fact. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. We were pulling in the backside of that tree line there. And as soon as you pull into the right, there's that little opening on that tree line. I saw something black sticking up over the bush. It was on the edge of the tree line. I mean, I just kind of glanced at it for a second, and I'm going along, and I looked back over there, and because I was something told me, I guess I was going to ask D about it maybe. And I looked, and I was like, oh my God, there was something black standing over here. And D said, you saw that too.
Yeah,
so we both saw the same thing, but neither one of us thought anything because why would you? Even though we're out there looking for this. Well, we weren't out there. We were out there to film, and for him to get out there and talk. What is this on my hat? A bug. Hello.
Now, speaking of the devil, he's in the chat now.
Little spider. It'll be all right. He won't bite but once. Oh, D's here. Awesome. Yeah, he was on our last one that we did. No, he wasn't. The one before the first late show we actually did. D was
but and there's a time that me and D went down there, and we're walking through the bottoms, and that whole day was freaking weird, man, because every step we took, these thousands of, this is Jason's favorite story, thousands of these baby spiders would just crawl out from underneath your feet. Now, they wouldn't crawl on you. That was strange. But there was, millions of these things, man. I've never seen anything like it since, or before or since. And it was like in a certain area, and then we got past them. And we were coming back because we decided to run because we got hungry. He had to pick up the kids and was like, well, it's, getting about lunchtime. Let's turn around and go back, head back to the house. We passed right now. Dean knows this place like the back of his hand. I think this is the second time I've been out with him, third, maybe something, because, But anyway, so we're walking back. We totally whiff right by where we're supposed to go up to the truck. And it's not a hard spot to see where you're supposed to turn up and go back to where we parked. We walked right past it. When we got back to the truck, 6 hours had elapsed.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember this.
And what the strangest part about it was, one, we had no recollection of anything weird or strange or, creepy or anything. But when he reviewed the footage of the camera, how when you record on the digital camera, it puts if you stop it and start it and stop it and start it, it's in sequence.
Yeah, it numbers them in sequence, each
clip.
clip.
The sequence was all jacked up. And there was footage of somebody or something had this camera sprinting through the damn woods, looking all around. And me and Dean never left each other's hip. But that camera swings around 360 several times, and neither one of us are inside. We don't know who had the camera or what had the camera, but neither one of us were there. And we don't remember any of this. I'm too fat to go running through the woods.
I heard this story. I told Dean, I said, all right, so aliens came down, picked you guys up, 6 hours.
I don't know. I have no idea.
But see, that's just another one of those things. If it's the high EMF, it's it's affecting the camera, it's affecting you, and it also affects people in different ways.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. It's not I don't know. There's a lot more people out there that know more about it than I do. But what little I do know, it fits with a lot of it. It explains a lot of the things that are going on with a lot of people regarding this creature.
And the thing about
the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, the woo camp. But it's just like when we was back out there again, and we were supposed to have, Dee was supposed to meet me out there, and two other gentlemen were supposed to meet us out there. And then they were supposed to have a big expedition the next 3 days after that. I had went out there early, and because I wanted to go up to the cemetery by myself. And the first time I drove up, I got out of the truck, I didn't even hardly get to the trailhead. And there was footsteps all around me. And I had this vibe like, I ain't supposed to be here. So I kind of backed off and I went back and I called Dee and I said, I got this going on. He goes, man, you don't need to go up there by yourself, man. Tex, you just don't do this, And I said, well, I done put my foot in my mouth and I promised everybody I was going to. Plus, I felt like for some reason, personally, I needed to. So I made another trip back up there and got out of the truck. And I said, all right, I'm going to do this. And the atmosphere had lightened a little bit. I could still hear some stuff. And I caught I think there was 2 whoops I caught over to my right. And so I went ahead and I went up there and I didn't have anything but a pen light, a pocket knife, and my phone. And my phone was no help because you don't have service up there on top of that cemetery hill. So I'm traipsing up this freaking hill and I heard footsteps over here. I heard a growl over here to my left. And I get up there and there's this tree that's right there at the entrance to the cemetery. And it's broke off about 10 feet up and laid across the entrance. Okay, well, that's pretty strange, but weather on top of the hill. Okay, whatever. So I've got my phone out, and this is what I've got my flashlight and I'm kind of looking around and everything. I've got audio going on my phone because I knew my camera wasn't going to work. It was pitch black. So I'm looking around and I turn back around to my left and I catch this eye shine. Okay, eye shine. It's about, 2.5 feet off the ground. That's cool. But what struck me was I don't know anything that is about 2 feet tall that has eyes about as big around as a silver dollar and about 8 or 10 inches apart.
That's Bigfoot laying on the ground, man.
And I know these critters, man. I know they belly crawl, and I think Jason's in this. We have the same theory. And I think you do too. They spend more time on all fours than they do on two legs.
Out there, because you can see through those woods. So out there, Dee's seen them do it. He saw he calls it a young one. It was a small one.
Crawl. You know?
Yeah, that whole thing was out there. That's a creepy place. But this is my thing here. I know you want to finish this, but when you go out there by yourself and it's dark and something's growling at you, leave. Get in your truck and go home. You are out of your mind. Oh my God.
I've been accused of being brave and stupid, and there's a fine line, you know. But
I don't think the line is fine at all.
Nope. But I think you have pole vaulted on the very specific side of that argument.
If it is, if there's a fine line, then you're teetering on the precipice.
Well, I've gotten my hand spanked many times by Miss Lady in the Woods when going up there.
Yeah, I mean, seeing eyes, that's one thing, but something growling at you, yeah, I'm sorry, dude. You're just go ahead. Finish your thing there.
Well, anyway, I catch this eye shine and I'm watching it and it starts playing peekaboo behind a tree. And then it starts doing this. You can tell, you know, because it was blacker. You know how you got your flashlight's only got a certain range, and it was just a pin light, so it wasn't far. So you can see this silhouette that's blacker than, you know, the rest of the area around it. Mm-hmm. And the eye shine, and it looks like it's peeking behind a tree, and then it'll peek out and like this. And then it looks like it starts turning its head because I'll see one eye, and then I'll see like the other. It was just a weird situation. And I was fine with that. That was pretty cool. And then I couldn't tell if it just stood up or if it moved forward and stood up, but it got up. And that's when I decided to make a strategic retreat.
Well, but it took you long enough. I'll just say that.
Well, I know it sounds like a long time, but it really wasn't that long. It's all on audio on my channel. And I mean, it's pretty comical actually. But the third time I backed out, and then we met up, and we went up there a third time. There's 4 of us, and we're cruising through the cemetery. We get kind of back behind the cemetery, and we found some markers that, like the Indians used to use, they would take a tree when it was a sapling and bend it at a 90 degree, you know, and then you get a ball on that elbow, and then, you know what I'm saying? We found one of those, and then we found a cedar tree, which is really strange. All the limbs were stripped off from about 10 feet to the bottom. They weren't cut off, they weren't sawed off, they were stripped off. And they were all piled up at the bottom, just like a bed. And then we saw this game trail. Well, let me back up.
Back it up.
So we're humping it through these woods, and it was right. We just saw the marker, and we was going past it. And I'm brush popping. I'm ahead of everybody. And then I just, man, I got weak. I broke out in a cold sweat. I got dizzy. I felt like I was fixing to pass out, and I kind of lagged behind. I leaned up. I got a tree like this. I'm leaning up against it, taking a breath. And everybody walked by me, and D turns around. He looks at me. And he says, "Man, you're white as a sheet. What's wrong with you? You okay?" And I didn't want to back out because these guys had came a long way, and you know, and everything. I didn't want to ruin the trip for them. And I said, "Just let me breathe, man. I think I'll be okay. I may head back to the truck." And young step here. "Oh, we'll go back with you." And in about 5 minutes or so, I felt better than I did before. It was crazy. I felt like I was fixing to pass out, and then I was fine. I was right back out front, and here I go. Well, anyway, we get past that. We go past the cedar tree, and we see a game trail, big old game trail, leading off back down behind the cemetery. I said, "Hey, man, let's go down here." And I know Sooner took 1 or 2 steps towards that game trail, and everybody heard it. Right in front of us. Mm. And D from behind us goes, "Time to go home, boys."
Nope, time to go.
Time to go. So He said,
Without a
"Man, they
doubt.
don't want us here." And so we turned around, we backed out, and we went across the street and across the road over there.
And the cemetery. When I went out there, the cemetery was as anemic as any place could be. Now, if you spend any amount of time or a decent amount of time in any woods, something strange is going to happen to you. If you're out there long enough, don't care where you go, something strange is going to happen to you that you just question or can't explain. But when you go to Brown Springs, you don't have to stay there long.
No,
it is just a different place, man. I knew it as soon as I went there, or I felt it. It was just middle of the day, and it was bright, sunny, and we went into those trees, and it was just gloomy and very ominous feel to it. You know, kind of close to the river. There's something about being down in that place on the right where we saw that thing by the field. That I just there's something about that place. So it's different, and maybe that's why they're drawn there. I don't know. Here's a question right here. Oh, Brian George, can these creatures see electromagnetic waves or whatever is associated with cameras being pointed at them? You know, if you believe, this is just my thing here. If they can, there are certain places where they don't mind. Down there in Florida, Mark Zaski's catching them. If they know cameras are being pointed at them, they don't care because they're catching them on camera down there. Some of it's really clear stuff. Some of it's incredibly amazing stuff. Some of it is, you know, easy for anyone that didn't know any better to question, you know, that it would be like bushes. But they've got one that Melanie caught, and they had it in their intro for a long time, of there's a hole in the bushes, and it's 20 feet, 30 feet away, right across the canal. There's a hole in the bushes about like this, and she's aiming the camera at Mark, but catching this thing in the background, and this face is sitting right in it. And you wouldn't know it was a face unless you knew what to look for. But what happens? These eyes about this big blink twice.
like the video we had week before.
That was crazy.
That was one of the first times I've actually genuinely wanted, like, wait, what?
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Well, so just to play with that a little bit, again, I am of the opinion. I think that let me rephrase this. I think that's a really good possibility that they have the ability to sense the electromagnetic spectrum. It may also depend on things like distance, right? Like, just because you and I can see something, you get it far enough distance, we can't see it, right? It may be the same thing, because we also have to remember that the EM spectrum is a very broad spectrum, and there's EMF everywhere, right? Different frequencies, different intensities. So if they can detect it, I think there are other things that influence. Again, assuming that they do, I think there's other things that can influence that can create that. I do think that actually females are more prone to not sense it, probably right, while pregnant and post birth, right? I think any of the ladies who've had children, I know my wife talked about all the time, baby brain, right? Where it's like, because you actually do lose mass while you're pregnant, while you're nursing. It's just a thing. Your body's really just consuming itself to produce for the child. In the same way, we look at Patty. Patty was clearly nursing, right? It's interesting that a lot of the videos we have are females with youngins, right? Like there's the New York one where what we assumed to be a juvenile got into the tree and started brachiating. There's the one where it's running across that big hill and just suddenly seems to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if either it was more prominent with males, or females, that had, maybe just don't sense it as well. I
think they get a little dumb during that time.
Well, not dumb. I just think that it's just
bad choice of words.
It dulls the senses. I think it's a better way of saying it.
Well,
I think
maybe they're more focused on something else than they are.
Right.
Patterson and Gimlin were on horseback. A lot of people don't really consider that. These guys were on horseback.
And that's another thing that I've also I completely agree with. I think that they heard, if they were hearing it, they just heard horses, right?
Or smelled them.
Or smelled them, and they didn't, and there was nothing to make them go, "Oh, that's the thing."
Right.
So again, if we work from this, plus they weren't using electric cameras. The camera they used was analog and mechanical. You actually had to wind it. So their EM cross section would have been greatly reduced.
Right.
And because they were on the horses, I think the creatures would have said, "Hey, those are horses. They're large, 4-footed animals. We're fine." And so again, we have those possibilities. But again, I think that the fact that they show up on camera does not dissuade the EM theory, because again, there's so much EMF in the atmosphere naturally. Then there's what we're putting into it. So and plus there's distance. Like how perceptive can they be at 50 feet, right?
Right.
I think these are some questions we kind of need to throw in there and say, hey, just because they're showing up on cameras doesn't mean they can't see it or can't detect it.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if it's true, they're being bombarded by it. I mean, there's a transformer on every other pole, or for every power pole, probably in the entire country. And those you get close enough to it, you can detect about 5 milligauss. My camera puts out about 2 milligauss, which is not a lot. But we went through, I didn't. Mark and Melanie went through their area, which there's no power lines or anything through there. It is the woods for all intents and purposes. There's stuff around. There's a golf course not far away. Picked up 300 milligauss spikes on a millimeter. 300.
Yeah, we talked about this, and I think a lot of it has to do with the limestone, the quartz, the running water underneath the ground.
Yeah, maybe so. That too.
And that's the big thing with even the whole limestone. That's again, there's a weird connection to. Give me just 2 seconds on this one. Pan, the god Pan that the Greeks worshipped, right? The satyr.
Yeah.
He was worshipped in natural grottos made out of limestone, where the water had come through. Usually, there was a natural waterfall included, but that's what they were looking for. Well, you come to Dallas. Well, yes. But, Goatman is another name for the Bigfoot around here. There are, and we have the infamous Sandy Grace story that Nick Redfern writes about, but I've got another account of people seeing an actual 7-foot tall Goatman. Well, again, where is White Rock Lake? It's in limestone. That's why he got its name, White Rock. All of this stuff out here, we're all sitting on top of that giant limestone plat. So there may be something going on with that that's attracting or providing for some of these more exotic things. Again, what that is, I don't know, but we kind of have to put 2 and 2 together on that and say, hey, this is kind of a thing that exists.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's all has to be considered. You can't just throw it away. Even if it's not a part of your paradigm, a part of your belief, you still have to consider these things as a possibility because they're there. Well, it's not that they're not. They are there. These things do exist, and they do explain to a degree some of the things that are going on here. Whether it's the answer or not, we don't know.
It may just be a tiny piece of the puzzle too.
Right. Well, it's like every time I go out, I come back with more questions than I do answers. But I think that's what.
Like, why did that chicken have an Adam's apple?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know. It boggles the mind. It really does, and it's a fascinating subject, and it's going to be a while before we. I think personally, disclosure is going to happen in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, the technology is getting better. Absolutely. I think Doppler is it's so expensive now, and you got to have somebody licensed to use it because you can burn people with it. But Doppler can detect heartbeats through the trees. So, I mean, they might not be able to tell you what's there, but they can tell you something is there, and that kind of takes hiding completely out of the equation. But it's hey, it's been a great show. Excellent show. I appreciate you guys coming on here and giving us a little bit of content during this whole virus thing. If you have not gone and subscribed to Trinity Paracryptid Research, go and do that right now. We'll have a link to that in the description. Tomorrow night on the Researchers Reports, we're going to have Randy Harrington, 7:00 p.m. Central. Don't forget to go subscribe to the Shutter. Shutter
Yes.
I just put my 29th video out in 35 days. So I've been working really hard, but it's encounter stories. I think you guys will really enjoy it. And if you don't, then you don't. But people seem to be enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it, and I appreciate you guys supporting me by going to check it out, because that's really what it is for me. Not having a job right now is just trying to get a little bit more to come in, but at the same time trying to put something out that's worth that's worth skipping through a commercial for. So but thank you, Jason and Tex, for coming on here tonight. I appreciate it. I don't know, we'll have the regular show tomorrow night, and we may do another late show probably Friday, and we'll see who we're going to get on there then. So we'll get somebody on here with me. If not, I'll sit here and ramble on for an hour taking questions. But thanks everybody for showing up here. Thank you, Tex. Thank you, Jason. Y'all have a good night.
Y'all be good.